And there's one nutrient that is like the key that turns on the production of the connective tissue. And without this nutrient, you cannot make connective tissue. And I will present to you that it is deficiencies in this nutrient that account for much, if not most, if not all, of the misery that's associated with the aging process. Not just physical misery, but psychological misery in terms of our appearance. And this one nutrient is the connective tissue machinery key. And if you have just a little bit of this nutrient, you'll be able to build just a little bit of connective tissue. But if you have a lot of this nutrient, you'll be able to really go to town with the connective tissue. Do you want to know what this nutrient is? You should. Everybody should want to know what it is. It's vitamin C. Vitamin C is the anti-aging vitamin by virtue of its role as the key that turns on the machinery of connective tissue building.
Aloha and welcome to another show, guys. Today I have a very special guest, a true pioneer in the field of nutrition and skincare. Ben Fuchs is a registered pharmacist, nutritionist, and a skincare chemist with over 35 years of experience. He's the founder of Truth Treatment System, a line of pharmacy potent skin health products trusted by estheticians, dermatologists, and plastic surgeons alike. Ben also hosts The Bright Side, a syndicated radio show where he shares natural health remedies and discusses the vital nutrients our body needs to thrive. And he's also a regular on Coast to Coast AM, where he also talks about nutrition and natural health treatments. So we're thrilled to have him here today to talk about anti-aging, vitamin C, vitamin A, and dive into some of his innovative products and regimen for anti-aging skin. So please join me in welcoming Ben Fuchs to the show.
You know, I have to tell you, I love the name The Sensible Hippie. I'm a hippie.
I know.
Oh, you know? Did you hear that video that you two where I talked about being a hippie?
No, go for it. Tell me.
How could you tell I was a hippie?
Because you talk outside of the box, and
Okay.
I love how you talk about other
Outside
things
the
that are not.
box.
Yes.
Yeah. So I did a video a long time ago on nutrition. I started off by saying I identify as a hippie because hippies to me means people who are inclusive rather than exclusive. I think we have a problem in our culture today because we don't include everybody. We exclude people, whether they're immigrants or gay or transgender or different religions or different ethnics. We have this culture that's really chauvinistic and divides things up into groups that think they're mutually exclusive, but they're really not. You know, Kamala Harris, I was just listening to her today. I don't know how you feel about her, but she just said, had a really interesting quote, and they made fun of her, of course. She said, "You're not a coconut. You didn't fall out of a coconut tree." Did you hear this?
No.
That you didn't fall out of a coconut tree. Now there's these memes from Kamala where there's coconuts and coconut trees. And everybody kind of laughed at her and Republicans made fun of her. But what she meant was, she said, you didn't just fall, you're not independent. You live in a context. You live with everybody and everybody helps you. And if you have a business, you depend on your customers and you depend on the truckers and you depend on the growers. Everybody depends on each other. And even though we like to think, and I'm an entrepreneur and I like to think I'm on my own, there's no way I could do this on my own. I depend on people who are knitting things and across halfway across the world, and people are growing things, and we're all in this together. And to me, that's what hippie values are. Hippie values honor our connection to each other and honor independent thinking and honor, like you say, thinking out of the box. I think of it being more like novelty, what works, not necessarily what we've always done, but what's effective and what works. So I identify as a hippie, and you really caught my attention with your email or your email address and the podcast name. And I have to tell you, one time, I don't know, about 5 or 6 years ago, maybe longer, I was talking to a kid, and he was probably in his 20s, and he said to me, he hates hippies. And I kind of got offended a little bit. I took it personal. And he said to me, I said, why do you hate hippies? And he says, well, they're dirty, they're smelly, and they steal all your stuff. And I thought to myself, that's kind of what hippiedom has become. You know, that's what people think of, kids who don't really remember the 60s or 70s. You look kind of young. You probably don't remember the 60s or the 70s, but, you know, I grew up in the 70s. And so to me, when I think of a hippie, I think of, you know, just connection and love and relating to each other and being part of a big group of humanity where it doesn't matter what your gender or your race or your sexuality or your any of your color or whatever. None of that matters. We're all in this together as human beings. But the kids back then, anyway, this was like maybe 10 years ago, like I said, when they think of hippies, they think of dirty and smelly and steal all your stuff, which is too bad because I am a hippie and I'm a proud hippie. And I loved seeing that you're the sensible hippie. That's really cool.
Sensible
Are you
hippie.
a mom? Are you a mom?
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's cool. How old are your kids?
Oh, they're 30 something and 20. I have to think 29 and 36.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. You look very young. You don't look that old.
Thank you. I use your products.
Okay, I love that. Your skin's great. So okay, let's get rolling here and see where we end up.
I really appreciate you taking your time to come out on the show.
Oh, my pleasure. I love doing this. I come to life when I get to talk about these ideas, and I really like helping people. And that's what it really is all about for me. Skincare has this superficial context of being cosmetic and not important, but I consider it to be part of health. And I consider it to be my way of giving back to the universe because I've been blessed in my life and I want to give back. And so I give back, not just with beauty and cosmetics and skincare, as you know, but also with health in general.
Yeah, exactly. But I notice every time you talk, you have a lot of passion, and I appreciate that. I think that's what makes people listen to you because of your passion and your love. It comes from your heart.
It does.
It
absolutely
does.
Yeah, pharmacists we see our patients. And I get the letters because I'm not just a pharmacist. I'm a pharmacist for large groups of people in a way because I do all these public presentations and coast to coast and that kind of thing. So I get letters, and the letters I get that describe people's not only poor health, but their disconnection from their bodies and their really lack of understanding how their bodies work. It's so tragic. It's so sad, and it's so heartbreaking that I consider it to be my sacred mission, my spiritual mission, and my gift to the human race, to humanity in general, to be able to help people understand how their bodies work. Most people know more about their microwave ovens than they do about their pancreas. We can program our computers, but we can't program our bodies. We don't understand the impact of everything we do. And these are all the reasons why I'm so passionate about what I do, is because it says in the Bible, my people perish because of lack of knowledge. And people are perishing. They're dying because of lack of knowledge. They're getting carved up like Christmas turkeys. I talked to people who had their gallbladders taken out and their breast removed and parts of their intestine, all the same person. There are people who are walking around like half with half a body or 3/4 of a body because the medical paradigm is such that it just takes things out, or it just poisons people. And it's so mean-spirited. It's so unfair that I consider it to be really the reason I'm on planet Earth. I'm not looking for my purpose. That's my purpose, is to help wake people up to how magical and how divine and how spiritually coherent their bodies are. And that's why I'm so passionate about what I do.
Well, how did you become so passionate about this? How did you become a pharmacist and then start your own line?
Well, that's interesting. I was always fascinated by drugs, believe it or not. And I was always fascinated by how the body could be changed by drugs. And more specifically, it wasn't just drugs in general, but it was actually the medicinal properties of food. And that was really my thinking when I went to pharmacy school, is I wanted to study how you could use food as medicine. And I didn't really know much about pharmacy at the time. I have a journalism degree, and I wasn't making any money as a journalist. It was hard for me. I waited on tables and I was bagging groceries. I figured I always liked the idea of food as medicine. I always liked the idea of drugs as medicine, or the power of drugs, and illegal drugs as well as legal drugs, because I grew up in the 70s. And so I thought to myself, where would I go to study food as medicine? And for some reason, I thought of pharmacy school, and I signed up to go to pharmacy school, and I went into the dean's office the first day of pharmacy school. The dean interviews all the students to get to know them, and he asked me why I wanted to be a pharmacist. And I said, I want to study food as medicine. And I'll never forget, he laughed so uproariously. It was like, I was shocked. He belly laughed when I said that. And he said, we don't do that here. We don't study food. We study drugs. We study pharmacology and pharmacy and pharmaceuticals. And I had already applied, and I was married, and I moved to Colorado, blah, blah, blah. So I wasn't in a position to say, this isn't what I want to do. And plus I had heard pharmacists made a lot of money. So I figured, okay, I'll stick with it. And I did stick with it. And I'm glad I did, because it taught me a lot about what's called medicinal chemistry, which is how the chemical structure of different molecules have different impacts on the body. And while I didn't get to study food as medicine, I did get a good understanding of biochemistry and medicinal chemistry. And when I graduated pharmacy school, one of the things, quick digression here, one of the things we study in pharmacy school that a lot of people don't recognize is we study nutrition. But we don't study nutrition like a dietitian studies it. We don't study nutrition like a nurse or a doctor studies it. We study nutrition like a pharmacist studies it, which means we study the medicinal and the healing and the therapeutic properties of vitamins and minerals and amino acids and fatty acids. And not only did we study the medicinal and healing and therapeutic properties of these essential nutrients, but we also study how lack of these essential nutrients is behind chronic degenerative diseases. And I was thinking in my head while I'm studying all this stuff, I'm thinking, why are we studying about toxicity, about drugs and toxicity and side effects and adverse reactions and how you reduce adverse reactions when we have nutrition? And I was already predisposed to working with food as medicine. And so I thought to myself, well, I'm just going to start suggesting people use nutrients instead of drugs. And this is when I graduated pharmacy school. And I went to work at Kmart. I don't know if you have Kmarts in Hawaii. It's like a department. You've heard of Kmart probably. It's like a cheap discount department store. And in pharmacy school, I never really worked in pharmacies. In pharmacy school, pharmacy students have to get their internship hours working in drugstores. And I didn't get my internship hours working in drugstores. I got my internship hours working in skincare. That's how I learned skincare. I actually had the opportunity to work for the guy who invented Blistex, the lip medicine Blistex. He was a professor at the University of Colorado, retired professor by the time I got there. But he still had his place, the Blistex lab. He was very famous. And so the Blistex company gave the university a bunch of money, and the university in turn gave the Blistex lab and Dr. Jones a laboratory to do research in. And just through luck and happenstance, I ended up being Dr. Jones' research assistant for 4 years while I was in pharmacy school. That's where I learned skincare. But I never really did pharmacy. And when I went to work at Kmart, I was really hip to nutrition as well as skincare. And I was also a bodybuilder and an athlete. So I was using nutrition in my own personal life. Back then, I was in my 20s and I was obsessed with having big muscles and being big and being strong. And we would always read the bodybuilding magazines and the weight building magazines and look for the latest supplements and the latest nutrients that you could use to grow. And I was really fascinated with nutrition from a bodybuilder's perspective. And I had an understanding from a pharmacy school perspective. And so when I went to Kmart, I started suggesting to people that they add nutritional supplements to their prescriptions. So somebody would come in for, like, say, a beta blocker for their heart. I would say, hey, maybe you want some magnesium with your beta blocker. That'll help your beta blocker work. It'll help your heart. Or maybe you want some vitamin C for your immune system, or probiotics for your digestive system. And this was the 1980s. And so, today we have health food stores everywhere. Everybody knows about nutrition. You go on Amazon, you can look things up on the internet. Back then, nutrition was still weird. And for a pharmacist to talk about nutrition was super weird. So I started to get a reputation at Kmart for being the pharmacist who knew about nutrition. And sure enough, which makes perfect sense, when I would suggest people take nutrients with their acne medicine or blood pressure medicine or heart medicine or diabetes medicine, their symptoms would improve above and beyond what they had expected or what they were used to with just medication. And I knew that would happen because I knew how powerful nutrition was. And so pretty soon I started to get really cocky, and I started to tell people to take nutrients not with their meds, but instead of their meds. And sure enough, Kmart wasn't exactly thrilled with me for doing that, and I got fired. But I started my own pharmacy. I was like, why am I doing this for Kmart? I'm going to start my own pharmacy, which I did. I started a skincare pharmacy where we specialized in nutrition, nutritional supplements, and skincare that I made. And I started to see that people got results that were superior not only to what they were expecting, but to what they were getting with their prescription drugs. And I became a hardcore, dyed-in-the-wool, passionate, full-fledged nutritional pharmacist using nutrients, which I consider to be God's medicine. And I don't know, you probably know this, but I have I'm very spiritual about what I do. Everything I do has a spiritual basis. And I consider nutrition to be divine medicine. It's God's medicine. And while you don't get the same potency with nutrition that you do with prescription drugs, you get a kindness and a gentleness. Nutrients work with the body. They don't compel the body. They don't force the body. They ask the body. And I often tell this story from the Bible. I don't know if you know the Old Testament at all, but in the Bible, Moses led the children of Israel through the desert, but he didn't get to go to the promised land. Joshua took them to the promised land. And you know why? Do you know the story? Why Moses did something bad and God punished him in the Bible. This is the story. And God punished him and said, because you did this, you're not going to get to go to the promised land. I'm going to let Joshua go to the promised land. And what did Moses do? Well, Moses was leading the children of Israel, and they were all bitching and moaning and complaining. And, that's kind of like an ongoing theme. And they wanted water. And Moses says to God, hey, look, can you get these people some water? They want water. And God says to Moses, yeah, I will get them some water. I want you to go to that rock, and I want you to ask the rock to give you water. And Moses was so ticked off and so irritated, so it goes the story in the Bible, that instead of asking the rock, he took a stick and he hit the rock. And the rock gave him water, but God said, you know what? I told you to ask the rock, not to hit the rock. And because you didn't ask the rock politely, you hit it and you ordered it to give you water, you are now punished. Now you're not going to get to go to the promised land. And so when I think of drugs and I think of nutrients, I think of that story. Nutrients are asking the rock to be better. They're asking the body. What we do with the pharmacomedical model, not just with drugs, but also with surgeries, and also with ablations, and also with radiation, our strategies in the pharmacomedical model are hitting the rock. They're like, you stupid body. You are so stupid, you body. We're smarter than you. We're just going to take your intestine out. How do you like that? We're just going to, you got the gallbladder, it's a problem? We'll just take the gallbladder out. You have a cancer gene? We're just going to take your breast. You have endometriosis? We're going to take your ovaries. You have high blood pressure? We're going to poison your heart with a beta blocker. You have congestive heart failure? We're going to give you a calcium channel blocker so your heart doesn't work as hard, because we're smart and you're stupid. And that's the implication that we have, not only from the medical model perspective, the pharmacomedical model perspective, but even from the patient perspective. We don't feel good enough. We don't feel capable enough. We don't feel strong enough. We don't feel intelligent enough. We don't feel enough. And we feel like we have to get injected so that we don't catch a cold or we don't get a virus. We think we have to take a medication so we don't get a stroke or we don't have high blood pressure. We think we have to remove an organ because it hurts us or because it's causing us some kind of physical distress. We don't understand our bodies. And what's worse is we have become disempowered. We become oblivious to our own power, to our own strength. The body is this magnificent healing system that doesn't require medicalization to be healthy, but yet we've been conditioned to believe that it does, to the point where we will lock ourselves in our houses and we will stand 6 feet apart from each other, and we'll wear masks and we'll stick things in our bodies, inject our bodies, so we don't get sick, but we'll eat French fries and we'll go to McDonald's and we'll eat Chick-fil-A and we'll drink Coke and we'll drink Pepsi, because we're so disconnected from what our body wants and needs. And we're so disconnected from what our body is capable of. And we have created this industrial complex that profits off that ignorance, that takes advantage of that ignorance. And I should say right now, it's not the individual physicians or the individual healthcare professionals. It's the model, because the individuals are beautiful people. And I have a lot of friends who are physicians and nurses, and they buy into the medical model. That's fine, but they're good people. They want to make a difference. I'm not blaming them. I'm blaming the model, the paradigm. And that's what my mission in life is. As we talked earlier, it's kind of the hippie mentality. I want the paradigm to become more human friendly, to become more user friendly, so that instead of disempowering humanity, it empowers humanity, or at least it teaches humanity and human beings that we have this power to heal. Our bodies are meant to heal. We're the descendants of ancestors whose bones repaired when they broke, whose skin repaired when they got hot, when they got cut. We're the descendants of ancestors who have a biochemical nature that's homeostatic, where when things are high, they get pulled down, or when things are low, they get pulled up. This is all built in to the body, and all we need to do is provide a few basic resources: nutritional resources, spiritual resources, mental and emotional resources, exercise, love and compassion, physical connection. There's all of these wonderful strategies that we have the potential to have at our disposal. We really have them at our disposal, but in effect, we don't, because we don't know about them, that we can leverage and we can take advantage of, so that we can be whole and healthy for a full 120 years, which is our genetic lifespan. And we don't have to start falling apart halfway into that or even before. And the average American is on something like 6 out of 10 Americans have one chronic degenerative disease, 4 out of 10 have 2 chronic degenerative disease, and 2 or 3 out of 10 have 5 or 4 or more chronic degenerative diseases. This is a horrible, horrible situation. And these statistics are occurring simultaneous and parallel with a medical model that has provided us with more doctors per capita than any other culture in the history of mankind. More devices, more drugs, more protocols, more hospitals, more insurance companies, more of every single measure in terms of healthcare that we've ever had. And simultaneously, at the same time, we're the sickest culture that ever existed. Clearly, it doesn't work. And I've taken it upon myself, and it's not just me, it's probably you and people like us. We've taken it upon ourselves to really create a change, to empower our fellow man. And you ask me, why me? Well, I see it. I see the pain. I see the suffering, not just in the patients, but in the mothers and in the fathers of the patients, or of the children of the patients, or of the grandchildren of the patients, or the friends or the loved ones. And it's heartbreaking beyond belief. And I've made it my life's work to make that, to change that situation.
That's great. I can definitely see that you're doing that. Your family, do they believe into
No.
the things that
They think I'm crazy.
Yeah. Oh.
They think I'm crazy. They think I'm crazy. I'm an oddball, and that, viva la oddballs. Long live the oddballs. The culture doesn't change unless there's oddballs.
Yeah.
There's no evolution without novelty. And that's really one of the big problems we have in our culture today, why xenophobia and fear of the other or fear of the different is so problematic, because you can't evolve unless you have differences. Even from a genetic standpoint, you've got to have different genes. That's why you don't inbreed. That's why brothers and sisters don't mate. They don't have sex or they don't procreate, because you need novelty. If you don't have novelty, if you have inbreeding, you can't evolve. So yeah, I am an oddball, but I'm not the only oddball in the world, but thank God for the oddballs. And like Arthur Schopenhauer, the famous philosopher, said, at first new ideas are first they're ridiculed, then they're violently opposed, and then they're accepted. And Thomas Kuhn, who wrote a book called The Structure of Scientific Revolutions back in the 1960s, said, science progresses funeral by funeral, meaning the old way has to die off for the new way to come in. So I'm very proud to be an oddball. I'm very proud to be a rabble rouser. I'm very proud to be shaking things up, because things need to be shaken up.
I agree. Me too. My family, not all of my family, but there are some family members think I'm crazy too. Same thing.
Yeah.
They think the same thing, but
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
It's you just
whatever.
know when you're with them, you don't talk about certain things, and we just leave it at that.
It doesn't do you any good.
Doesn't do any good.
And I don't mean this to be rude to anybody, but this
No.
is an old saying. You can't teach a pig to sing. It's not going to work, and you're just going to piss off the pig.
Yeah.
And so I don't mean to call anybody a pig, but that's the way the saying goes. You can't, if somebody's not interested, then I'm here to help people who are interested. I'm not here to persuade them. If somebody wants, right? That's not my job, is to persuade. But if people want information and they're not satisfied, and there's millions of people around the world who aren't, and tens of millions, maybe hundreds of millions of people who aren't satisfied, that's where I come in, and probably that's where you come in. We're here to help the people who want to be helped.
Exactly. And with I'm really interested in anti-aging. I know you talked about the skin can heal itself if we give it the right vitamins. Is that including our skin?
Yeah, heck yeah. First of all, it's not just vitamins. There are 4 classes of what are called essential nutrients. And the word vitamin sometimes gets collapsed to mean all the different essential nutrients. An essential nutrient is a nutrient that is essential. What does that mean? You can't live without it. So to give you an example of something that's essential, air is essential. You can't live without it. Without air, you die. Well, there are 4 classes of nutrients that are said to be essential in the sense that you need to have them or you die. Or first you have a disease and then you die. Deficiency disease and you die. These 4 classes of nutrients are the minerals, the amino acids, the fatty acids, 2 fatty acids, and vitamins. And these are 4 classes of nutrients. Sometimes we call them the mighty 90 essential nutrients. There's roughly 90 of these things, including all the minerals. And these nutrients give the body the raw material, or they activate biochemistry. Without these raw materials, biochemistry cannot proceed effectively, and ultimately deficiency diseases will happen. And then ultimately, if you keep going, you'll die. This is true about every organ in the body. And while we give lip service to the fact that the skin is the body's largest organ, we don't often treat it like an organ. We don't treat the skin like the liver or the heart or the spleen. With the liver, the heart, or the spleen, which are on the inside of the body, we know that if you want your liver to be healthy, you got to eat right. You got to make sure that you're not putting toxins in the body. If you're a little bit savvier about health, you know that you have to have nutrients. But for some reason with the skin, we haven't made that connection. We call it the body's largest organ, but yet when we have a skin problem, we just rub stuff on the skin. I talked to a gal a couple weeks ago, and she had one of the worst cases of psoriasis that I'd ever seen on her ankles. And she'd been rubbing cream on the psoriasis. And because to her, the problem is on the skin, so she's going to put cream on it, it's going to take care of the problem. And I had to explain to her that by the time you see the psoriatic lesion or plaque, and likewise, this is true by the time you see the pimple, or by the time you see the eczema, or the time you see the dry skin, it's over. That's the end. That ship has sailed. That cow has left the barn. Your job is to take care of tomorrow's cow, tomorrow's ship, tomorrow's plaque, tomorrow's zit, tomorrow's eczematic reaction, or tomorrow's whatever it is, tomorrow's dry skin, by working underneath at the level of biochemistry. And the missing link in skincare, in my opinion, I've been doing this for 40 years, the missing link in skincare is that we have not connected health with beauty. We're trying to hack into beauty without addressing health. And this is why I started Truth Skin Health. And it's, by the way, the company's called Truth Skin Health. Not Truth Skin Beauty, Truth Skin Health. Because it's about the health of the tissue. And at the end of the day, it's the health of the tissue, the health of the skin, that makes it beautiful. Yeah, you can stick fillers in. You can stick Botox in your face. You can have a facelift. You can do all kinds of surgical procedures. But you can't change the health of the skin with all of these tricks. You have to create a milieu of health in the body, and that comes from two directions. Number one, it comes from making sure you're getting enough of these nutrients, the mighty 9 essential nutrients. But number two, it means not putting things in the body that the body now has to deal with in a negative way. The body has to purify or detoxify or eliminate, minimizing the impact of things that shouldn't be in the body and maximizing the impact of the things that should be in. And this is true internally, and internally making sure that you're supplementing, taking your nutritional supplements and eating correctly. And by the way, supplements are supplements. You can't live on a supplemental income, but a supplemental income is very nice to have to boost your income. Likewise, a supplement, you're not supposed to live on it. It's supposed to supplement a good diet. So you got to make sure you're eating correctly. And then you need to be supplementing. If you're going to be maximally healthy, you want to supplement that diet. And then number two, you got to make sure you're not putting the stuff in that the body doesn't want. And sugar is one of the worst. But there's also fried fats and processed fats that are problematic. There's excitotoxins that are problematic. There's distorted chemicals that are put into foods that are designed to keep you eating. So you can't stop eating your Lay's potato chips. There are all kinds of tricks that people use or food companies use to keep you eating foods that you would never eat otherwise. So there are molecules they can put on a turd that will make you think it's a filet mignon. Literally, they call these molecules excitotoxins because when you eat them, your brain goes, yippee, but it fries your circuits. So you got to make sure that you're eating correctly and not putting the things in your body that your body doesn't want in combination with things that your body does want. Now, I should also tell you that while beauty is a function of health, health itself is much more than physical health. Health is mental health. Health is emotional health, and both mental and emotional, I consider them to be two sides of the same coin, because every time you think a thought, you have an emotion. Every time you have an emotion, you think a thought. Both of these are connected to the hormone system. And so if you're thinking thoughts of love and having feelings of love, you have a hormone system. You have hormones that are being activated that are going to heal you, and they're going to make you feel better about yourself, better about life, and they make your body work better. But if you have thoughts and emotions about anger and rage and fear, the opposite's going to happen. So making sure you're working on mental and emotional, on the mental and emotional dimensions are also important for skin health. And in a way, we eat our thoughts and we eat our emotions. They're food too. Our thoughts and our emotions are a type of food. It's a mental food. It's an abstract food, but it will nourish you or not nourish you, like a food will nourish you or not nourish you. And then there's the spiritual dimension, which is probably the most important dimension of all. And I don't mean religion. I'm not proselytizing here. To me, spirituality means feeling connected to the universe, right? We are connected. We really are. There's no disconnection. It seems visually that there's all this, that we're disconnected from everything. But every time you breathe out, I breathe in. Right now, I'm breathing in atoms that Abraham Lincoln breathed out in 1860, and Jesus Christ breathed out 2,000 years ago, and Buddha breathed out 2,600 years ago. And it's all out there. In physics, they call it the unified field theory. We're all connected, and separation is an illusion. And the reason this is important is because when we feel separate, we go into fear. In fact, if you look up phobias or fears, they'll in the encyclopedia or in Wikipedia, you'll see there's a lot of fears. There's fear of crowds, and there's fear of heights, and there's fear of spiders, and there's fear of snakes, and there's fear of public speaking, and there's fear of death. I mean, there's a lot of fears out there, right? But really, all fears boil down to one fear. And that is the only fear that there is, which is the fear of the unknown. When something is not known, that's when it inspires fear. And a guy named Gerald Jampolsky, and also the Course in Miracles, talks about the two fundamental emotions. And they say the two fundamental emotions are fear and love. And in a way, fear is the unknown and love is the known. Fear is separation and love is unity. Fear is the sympathetic nervous system and love is the parasympathetic nervous system. And all of the good stuff in life, whether it's the good stuff physically in terms of our immune system, in terms of growth and repair, in terms of anti-aging, in terms of beauty, in terms of digestive functioning, in terms of creativity, they're all regulated by the love nervous system, the rest and digest nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system. On the other hand, disease, and you can tell by the name, dis-ease, disease is regulated by the fear nervous system. The fear nervous system is what raises your blood pressure. It's what makes your heart work harder. It's what suppresses your immune system. It's what slows down healing. It's what takes blood from the front of your brain to the back of your brain, where you go into your fear response. All the lousy stuff in life is located in the fear nervous system, comes from the sympathetic nervous system. And so to me, when I talk about spirituality, I'm talking about feeling connected so that you can activate the known response, the parasympathetic response. So the world looks friendly to you. So the world doesn't look like a dangerous place to you, which is how most people go through life. In fact, they asked Albert Einstein one time, they said, if you could talk to God, if you could ask God one question, what would you ask him? You know what he said? He said, I would ask God, is the universe a friendly place? And I always thought,
curious about a natural way to boost your immunity and stay healthy? Well, stick around. I've got some fantastic information for you. Hi, I'm Mia with the Sensible Hippie Podcast. Let's talk about the incredible benefits of elderberries. First, elderberries are packed with antioxidants and vitamins that help boost your immune system. This means fewer colds and stronger defense against illness. Second, they have anti-inflammatory properties that can help reduce inflammation and pain. Perfect for keeping your body feeling great. And finally, elderberries are known to support healthy heart, improving circulation and reducing cholesterol. A heart-healthy choice. Llama Natural Elderberry Gummies are a delicious and easy way to enjoy these benefits. Try them today and feel the difference. Go to llamanaturals.com and enter code OHANA for a 20% discount. That's llamaнаturals.com. llamaнаturals.com.
in fact, they asked Albert Einstein one time, they said, if you could talk to God, if you could ask God one question, what would you ask him? You know what he said? He said, I would ask God, is the universe a friendly place? And I always thought that was interesting because that's kind of a question we're all asking every day, especially women. And tell me if this is not true. When you see a man, right, and you're introduced to a man, isn't the first thing you're thinking, in a way, is this safe? Is this situation safe? And this happens to women, and they call it women's intuition, because statistically speaking, men are the worst thing that could have ever happened to women. You know, we're the leading cause of death in women. So women have learned to do this, but we're all doing this. We're all going about our day when a situation arises, when a person comes into our life, when an experience comes into our life, we're always saying, is this safe? Is this okay? And that's part of our evolutionary past. We're the descendants of ancestors who asked that question so they could get out of bad situations. So what we want to do from a spiritual perspective is we want to see the safety in the world, the beauty in the world. Yeah, if you watch the news, and you should never watch the news, you'll see a lot of fear because fear sells. But really, in the moment, we're all good. In the moment, you may have credit card bills, you may have cancer, you may have a kid with a horrible disease, you may have a job problem, all of it. But in the moment, in the present, you're good. It's very rare that somebody is not good in the specific moment that they're in. And this is why learning to return to the moment is so darn important. When you learn to return to the moment, you see that all is good, that all is well. It's only when you project to the future, to the possibilities, to what could happen, that's when you run into distress. Even if you're on your deathbed and you have a minute to live, say you have 1 minute to live, 60 seconds to live, there's way more going right in your body than going wrong. Way more. And you might be dead in 60 seconds, but for that moment, there's way more working than not working. And no matter how bad your situation is, if you looked at all the things that were working in your life, you'd have way more working right than working wrong. Way more, wouldn't even be close. And this is why, by the way, one of the most powerful ways to activate the parasympathetic nervous system, the safety nervous system, the rest and digest nervous system, is gratitude. When you feel gratitude, you activate the safety nervous system. And you can observe this for yourself. One of the classic manifestations of the fear response or the sympathetic nervous system is insomnia. And insomnia is an epidemic. I don't know, you probably know this. I mean, there are pillow commercials everywhere and mattress commercials everywhere and melatonin and formulas for sleep commercials everywhere. And there's like an epidemic of insomnia. It's like 60 or 70% of Americans have insomnia on a semi-regular basis or a regular basis. If you are laying in bed at night and you can't sleep, start counting all the things you're grateful for. And it could be something like your bed or your dog or your house or the money you have in your bank or your health or your hair that you still have or anything, food on your table, whatever it is. You will gradually activate the parasympathetic nervous system and you will find yourself falling asleep much more quickly as your body starts to feel safe by recognizing all of the things it's grateful for. And in fact, this is why before we eat meals, we're supposed to say grace. What is grace? Grace is gratitude. You're grateful for the meal. When you say grace before your meal, you activate your digestive juices. You will digest your food more completely and more efficiently when you're grateful for the food that you're eating. On the other hand, if you eat your food while you're watching the news or arguing with your wife or husband or in a business meeting or driving the car on rush hour, you're going to shut down your digestive system. And this is one of the reasons why 80 million or more Americans have digestive problems, is because we're living in the sympathetic nervous system in this fear response. So learning to activate consciously and volitionally the parasympathetic rest and digest nervous system is absolutely critical if you're going to maximize your health internally, but also your skin. Because under conditions of the parasympathetic nervous system activation, your skin heals. You grow collagen. You get a thicker, stronger barrier. You're more resistant to diseases. You're more resistant to bacterial secretions. You have a stronger intestine. And one of the leading causes of rosacea and eczema and psoriasis is a leaky gut. You get a stronger intestine when you are parasympathetic. So activating the parasympathetic response is critical. And one of the best ways to activate the parasympathetic response, this safety response, is to have the body generally and the cells specifically feel like they have all the resources they need. And this is my strategy with Truth Skin Health, my Truth formulations, is all my Truth treatments are nutritional supplements for the skin. If you look at the ingredient decks, you'll see vitamin C and vitamin A and vitamin D and amino acids and plant-derived minerals and essential fats. All of the nutrients that we consider to be the mighty 90 essential nutrients make up the best skincare ingredients you could use. And this is what we feature in my Truth treatments. When you give the body these copious, and they're very high doses. I don't know if you've seen my supplements, but the RDAs, I call the RDAs, you've heard the RDAs, right? I call them the ridiculous deficiency allowance because it's there to keep you ridiculously deprived. I like pounding the body with nutrients, saturating the body with nutrients. Why? Because you want a cell, and that's really what it's about, is the cell. You want the cell to feel like it has so much resources. it's like the Jeff Bezos of cells. I mean, it's like a multi-gazillionaire with cells. It has so much abundance, so much resources that it can make collagen and it can make moisture factors and it can divide and grow cells and it can do all the things it needs to do, because when a cell feels like it doesn't have what it needs, it conserves, it shuts down, it goes to sleep. It slows down its processes. So by flooding, I mean saturating, not window dressing, but saturating. My Truth Transdermal C serum has almost 80% fat-soluble vitamin C. Everybody's got retinol, 0.1%, 0.2%. I have 5% retinol. I have 5% retinol with 25% fat-soluble vitamin C. I want to pound the body with nutrients, pound the cells with nutrients. The RDA for vitamin recommended daily allowance, or the ridiculous deficiency allowance for vitamin A, is like 2 or 3 or 4,000 IU. I want you to have 20,000 IU. The RDA for zinc is like 5 or 10 milligrams. I want you to have 50 milligrams. The RDA for vitamin E is like, I don't know, 100 IU. I want you to have 400 IU. I want the cells in your body and in your skin to feel like I got so much here. And that's why I created Truth, is so that you could not only take nutritional supplements, that I believe everybody should do, but now you can put them on your skin. And guess what? When you put nutrients on your skin in the right form and in the right formulation, those nutrients can feed the skin from the outside in, the way nutrition and food feeds the body and the skin from the inside out. And this is why all my Truth treatments are like first aid products. They can be used on your baby's diaper rash. They can be used on sunburn. They can be used on cuts and scrapes. They can be used to heal the skin in addition to beautifying the skin. And indeed, all my Truth treatments initially were prescription products that I used to treat, that I used to for my patients to be able to treat skin diseases and skin problems. And so to me, using nutrition is like giving the skin what it craves, giving the body, internally giving the body what it craves, and topically giving the skin what it craves, so the skin and the body and the cells of the skin and the body feel like they have so much here. They can just go crazy with the proteins, crazy with the secretions, crazy with the repair, crazy with the divisions. I want my cells, and I want your cells, and I want my client cells to be so ecstatically happy that they cannot wait to make collagen and elastin and moisture factors and all of the good stuff. And that, to me, that's how you make an effective skincare product, and that's how you make an effective healthcare product.
Your skin looks great, by the way.
Hey, I'm an old man.
You don't look like an old man. Not at all.
You know, I appreciate you saying that, and that's because I've been doing everything I'm talking about. I've been doing for 35 years now. You know, I've been using my own products for 35 years.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah, so what do you think is the best anti-aging? Is it vitamin C, retinol
One
A?
ingredient? It's not really like one ingredient. I'll tell you why. You know, it's like, I don't know. Do you like baseball? Do you know anything about baseball? No.
I know about baseball.
Okay, you know about baseball. What's the most important position in baseball?
I would say the pitcher.
Okay, so let's say you had a pitcher and you had everybody, but you didn't have a first baseman. You think you'd win many games?
No.
Well, let's say you had a pitcher and a full team, and you didn't have a catcher. Same thing. It's team. What's the most important instrument in an orchestra?
The conductor?
It's an orchestra. No, it's an orchestra. That's what makes an orchestra. Nutrition is like an orchestra. There's no one nutrient that is the most important. That being said, if you had to pick one, and you shouldn't, and with my Truth treatments, you don't have to, vitamin A and vitamin C are probably the two most powerful skin nutrients you could use topically, as well as internally, but especially topically. Vitamin C is so stupendously valuable. I call vitamin C, and you don't follow baseball, but in baseball you probably heard of Babe Ruth, right? You don't know you don't know anything about baseball, but you know about Babe Ruth, because Babe Ruth is considered to be the greatest baseball player that ever lived. Everybody knows about Babe Ruth, even people who don't follow baseball. Vitamin C is the Babe Ruth of vitamins, and let me tell you why. Especially for the skin. As we age, okay, and you look very young and beautiful, but it's going to hit eventually. The number one cause of the distress that most people have about aging is the deterioration of one specific part of the body. And the deterioration of this one specific part of the body is what accounts for the the hunched over appearance that older people have, the pain that older people have, the joint aching that older people have, the hernias and the ruptures and the prolapses that older people have, the arthritis and the cancers and the heart disease and the wrinkles and the thinning skin. All of the things we hate about aging are due to the deterioration of this one part of the body. And to really understand what this one part of the body is, you got to talk about the parts of the body. And I don't mean the organs of the body. I mean a part of the body that's referred to as tissue. Now, you've heard the term tissue, right? Everybody's heard the term tissue. But tissue has this kind of biological, weird, anatomical, medical complex or connotation. So people kind of tune out when they hear tissue. So we'll just call it stuff. The body is made up of 4 kinds of stuff. If you're a scientist, you can call it tissue. You have the electrical part, electrical tissue, and that's the stuff that gives you electrical energy. That's called the nervous tissue. You have the covering part of the body, the skin and the eyes. This covering is called the epithelial tissue. You've probably heard of that if you're an esthetician, the epithelial tissue. Then you have the part of the body that allows us to move, whether voluntary movement or even heartbeats and digestive tract movements and respiratory movements. They're non-voluntary. That's called the muscle tissue. And that's 3 of the 4 tissues. The nervous tissue, which is electrical, the muscle tissue, which allows for movement, the epithelial tissue, which covers. But it's this 4th tissue that is the most important tissue in the body in the sense that it weaves everything together. It pulls everything together. And it's this 4th stuff, this 4th tissue, that is what's responsible for all of the misery of aging. The hunched over appearance, the back pain, the osteoporosis, the shriveling in size, the heart disease and the vascular disease and the ruptures and the hernias and the prolapses on the skin, the wrinkles and the fine lines and the thinning barrier and the hyperpigmentation are all the end result of deterioration of the connective tissue. And this is the most important part of the body, most important tissue in the body, the connective tissue. And job number 1 for anti-aging is to make sure your connective tissue is strong. Even as you age, as you go into your 60s and 70s and 80s and maybe 90s and 100, hopefully, you want to focus on building that connective tissue. And there's one nutrient that is like the key that turns on the production of the connective tissue. And without this nutrient, you cannot make connective tissue. And I will present to you that it is deficiencies in this nutrient that account for much, if not most, if not all, of the misery that's associated with the aging process. Not just physical misery, but psychological misery in terms of our appearance. And this one nutrient is the connective tissue machinery key. And if you have just a little bit of this nutrient, you'll be able to build just a little bit of connective tissue. But if you have a lot of this nutrient, you'll be able to really go to town with the connective tissue. Do you want to know what this nutrient is?
Yes.
You should. Everybody should want to know what it is. It's vitamin C. Vitamin C is the anti-aging vitamin by virtue of its role as the key that turns on the machinery of connective tissue building. And so we're going around, most of us, possibly not people listening to this right now, possibly not you, but most people are going around thinking that the RDA, the ridiculous deficiency allowance of vitamin C, is enough to anti-age them, and it's not. And guess what? There are a lot of people who aren't even getting that. Those are the people who get a multivitamin. They're going to get their 60 to 100 milligrams of vitamin C, but you need 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000 milligrams of vitamin C to be maximally healthy. And what we discovered, what I actually discovered many years ago in pharmacy school, but it's now become popular, is that you could put vitamin C on your skin. You definitely want to take it internally, but you can put it on your skin and it will drive the production of connective tissue. However, there's a problem with vitamin C. And that problem with vitamin C is it breaks down very quickly and becomes ineffective very quickly. And this is the reason why people don't get the wonderful vitamin C benefits that they should be getting from their vitamin C skincare, because they're not only are they not understanding the distinction between the forms of vitamin C, and some forms are better than others, but they're not being told about it. Because you see, the vitamin C that breaks down that doesn't have the real effects that you want, that's cheap. That stuff is dirt cheap because it comes from corn. And corn is a cash crop. And there's so much corn, and they can make vitamin C out of wasted corn that isn't even being used. So vitamin C that comes in in its water-soluble form, it's called ascorbic acid, is so cheap that there are skincare companies that say, hey, they don't know the difference. Patients don't know the difference. We're just going to sell them the ascorbic acid, and they won't know the difference. And in fact, the problem is so severe and so significant and so egregious that there are people who are taking their vitamin C containing skincare product, and they think they're using vitamin C because they heard on TV or from some celebrity they're supposed to use vitamin C, and it's turning brown in the bottle. And they don't realize that as it's turning brown, the vitamin C is disappearing. You may not have any vitamin C, and you certainly don't have as much as you think you do or as you bought once it turns brown. Not only that, but the skin is a barrier to water. So water-soluble vitamin C doesn't penetrate. It sits on the surface of the skin. And companies will play all kinds of games, and they'll put other ingredients in to try to improve that penetration of it. It doesn't really work. And then on top of all that, vitamin C is acidic, and it can be drying to the skin. So the way to get around this is with fat-soluble vitamin C, fatty vitamin C. It's the vitamin C we use at Truth. And fatty vitamin C gives you all the vitamin C benefits that you want. That is building the connective tissue, in addition to having skin lightening properties and immune boosting properties and skin softening properties. Vitamin C has a lot of wonderful benefits. You get all those with fat-soluble vitamin C, but you get also stability. It doesn't break down. So when you buy a True Treatment product that's 68 or 78% fat-soluble vitamin C, it's going to be 78% fat-soluble vitamin C for years. Not only that, but it's going to feel good on your skin. You probably have used our Truth Transdermal C Serum. It feels awesome on your skin. Not only that, but because it's fat-soluble, it will penetrate through the stratum corneum. So if I had to put my back against the wall and say, what's the one ingredient? Like I say, it's a team. There's no one position that's the most important, and there's no one musical instrument in an orchestra that's the most important. But if you made me say something, I would tell you it's fat-soluble vitamin C, followed very closely by vitamin A. And that's another very misunderstood topical skin nutrient. And you probably know vitamin A comes in different forms. The cheap form and the least effective form is the kind you get at the cheaper products, and that's called retinol palmitate. And that can be turned into vitamin A, but it's not really vitamin A. Then there's a kind that you get at the doctor's office, or not the doctor's office, but in the pharmacy with a doctor's prescription. And that one is so darn potent that all you need is a pinch of it. It's measured in like 0.01% to 0.1% strengths, which is very tiny concentrations. But you also need to get a prescription for it because it's so darn strong. So luckily, for people who don't want to have to deal with a prescription and people who don't want to deal with the cheap stuff, the ineffective stuff, there's a middle form of vitamin A, which is not quite as important as vitamin C, but it's pretty close. It's hard. A case could be made that it's as important as vitamin C, and that would be a retinol, which is a non-prescription version of retinoic acid, which is the prescription version of vitamin A. Now, retinol has to be turned into retinoic acid, and it's about 100 times less potent than retinoic acid, which is why I came up with 5% retinol. My 5% retinol is designed to have the same retinoid potency as 0.05%, or I'm sorry, 0.05% retinoic acid. So there's 100 times difference. And most people say, if you know retinol and you're an esthetician, so I'm sure you know retinol, most people say, 5%? That's crazy. You can't have 5% retinol. That's a typo. That must be, that you mean 0.5. No, okay. No, I mean 5. Why? Because I'm a pharmacist. And in pharmacy, we say the dose makes the medicine. And I don't want my patients to have to play around with some watered down diluted product. By the way, that's why I don't use water in my products either. I don't want my patients to have to pay for some diluted product. I want you to have the big guns, kick-ass products. And remember we said earlier, when a cell feels like it has all that it needs, that's when it's going to be comfortable enough to do all the work. And what do retinoids do, or vitamin A, or retinol, or retinoic acid? What do? They turn on the production of connective tissue. They're not like the key, and you can still make connective tissue without having vitamin A, but it is involved at the genetic level for upregulating the production of not just collagen, which is part of the connective tissue, but also high hyaluronic acid. You know, everybody's using high hyaluronic acid these days, right? Well, The high hyaluronic acid you put on your skin can make your skin feel good on the surface, but it's not going to change your hyaluronic acid, and it's not going to improve the hydration of your dermis, the lower levels of the skin. You got to make your own hyaluronic acid, and retinol will turn on the production of your own hyaluronic acid and your own collagen and your own moisture factors and your own skin steroids, your own skin cell steroids. The skin makes estrogen and testosterone and DHEA. You'll upregulate. My favorite word in biochemistry is upregulate. Make things happen. You are going to upregulate everything that's important for beautiful skin with retinol and retinoic acid if you want to get a prescription, although they are stimulating. And there's some people who won't use them because they're stimulating. In fact, I was just text messaging with my sales director who was talking to an esthetician who said, oh, I don't use retinol because it's irritating or it's inflaming. It's inflaming. And I wrote back to her, I said, oh, ask this esthetician if she goes to the gym or ask her if she lifts weights. Because if you could see what happened to your muscles when you did your bicep curls, you'd be like, oh my God, there's inflammation. There's irritation. But what happens the next day? They get bigger. The inflammation leads to growth. And this is how it's supposed to be. In a healthy body, when the system is disturbed, it will get stronger. This is a phenomenon known as anti-fragility. Now, it does require some prerequisites. You got to have nutrition present, and the body has to be healthy in order to leverage this. But it has a tendency, it wants to be anti-fragile. What does anti-fragile mean? Well, if something's fragile, obviously, like porcelain or china, you drop it, what happens? It breaks, right? It's fragile. Or your iPhone, your iPad, your computer, it's fragile, it breaks. If you drop a steel bar on the ground, it doesn't break. That's non-fragile. So you have fragile and non-fragile. Anti-fragile is when something gets bigger when it's stressed, gets stronger when it's stressed, becomes more efficient to be able to handle that stress, and the biological system is just that. In biology, the word is hormesis, Hormesis. And hormesis and anti-fragility refer to the fact that stress is your friend. As long as it's not overstress, it's just the right amount of stress, and it's balanced with nutrition and rest. And it's this triad of stimulation and rest and nutrition that accounts for the anti-fragility or the hormesis effects of stressors. And learning to stress the body intelligently and strategically is critical if you're going to maximize your healing and your longevity. And so when this esthetician said, oh, no, it's inflaming, I wrote back. I said, hey, do you ever go to the gym? And I sent her a Wikipedia description. I didn't send her. I sent my sales lady a description of a Wikipedia description of a definition of hormesis and of anti-fragility. So learning to understand how the body likes to be treated is so important here. This esthetician, she thought she's being nice. She was being kind to her body. Oh, I don't want to inflame the body. But she doesn't realize the body likes that. It thrives under those conditions. We are killing ourselves with comfort in our culture. The biggest problem we have in our culture is we're too comfortable. We got so many calories. We got so much food. We got so much warmth. We got big cushy sofas and couches that we never want to get off of, and mattresses that we never want to get up out of. Our culture has become so obsessed with comfort, and at the same time, we're sick. We're the sickest culture because we're so comfortable. It is the excess of calories, the convenience of food, the ease of obtaining what we need without having to walk or exercise to get it that's accounting for our poor health. So when this lady says, oh, I don't want to, it might be inflaming, she's not realizing that the body wants to be vigorized, shaken up, moved. And that's how it grows, and that's how it responds. That's how you stay maximally healthy and beautiful. So retinol, you got to be a little bit careful with. You got to take days off. You got to make sure you're using your nutritional supplements with it. And one of the biggest problems, and I have to wind this down here. I know I've been talking your ear off here for the last hour. One of the biggest problems in skincare that's not an under-recognized problem is as goes the health of the intestine, so goes the health of the skin. And learning to patch up a leaky gut, to address the health of the internal milieu of the intestine, and to stay away from foods, some of which are good foods that have a a negative effect on the intestine or a hyperproliferative effect on the bacteria in the intestine. These days we have a condition called SIBO, which you've probably heard of, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And this is the end result of a whole bunch of things that we're doing wrong with our bodies. But when that happens, you get these holes in the intestine and stuff gets into the bloodstream. And the end result on the skin is rosacea and eczema and psoriasis and rashes of all kinds and itching, and even acne can be caused by this problem. And internally, the problems are autoimmunity and cancer and endometriosis and fibromyalgia and pretty much all, and dementias, all health challenges, all of them can be reduced to this leaky gut phenomena where secretions and bacteria and food particles and immune particles are getting into the bloodstream and activating an inflammatory and immune response. So when people put retinol in their skin, if they're already spring-loaded because they have leaky gut or because they have SIBO or because they have histamine in the blood, histamine is one of these molecules, they're going to be much more reactive to retinol. And then the answer is not, oh, I'm never using retinol again. The answer is take care of your gut. Because when you take care of your gut, not only will you be able to use your retinol, but you're going to be dropping your risks for horrible chronic degenerative diseases, including cancer, further on down the road. So retinol is stimulating. You got to know how to use it. It's up there with vitamin C as one of the two most important, and it's hard to say which one is, so I'll put them both together. But if you have a problem with retinol, you got to know how to use it intelligently. And if you have a real problem with retinol, you got to work on your digestive health.
That's true. Couldn't she just use some kind of moisturizer with it, like your omega?
No. One of the worst things you could ever put on your, well, two things there. First of all, the omega has a calming property, quenching property. So yes, that would help. But if she's dealing with some kind of leaky gut or something like that, it's still going to be a problem. But you said something very interesting that kind of got my attention, and that is moisturizers. Okay. Now, I told you this before we started talking, that I have a journalism degree in addition to having a pharmacy degree, right? And so in addition to being a chemist, I also like words. I'm a wordsmith. And words, I take words very seriously. You know, words are magical to me. That's why they call them spells, right? Spell is a magic spell. You're spelling a word. Words have a very powerful connotation to me. So I'm very serious about the words I use. And one of the dumbest words in the English language is the word moisturizer. Why? Because when you think of a moisturizer, what are you thinking? A moisturizer should put moisture back in your skin, right? How could a concoction of wax and oil and emulsifiers, how does that put moisture back into your skin? It doesn't. What it does do is two things. Number one, you put on the surface of your skin, and I always tell people, especially women, because women are always doing this, the worst way to tell how good a skincare product is to put it on your skin and go, oh, that feels nice. Because what have you done? You just you're feeling the product. You're not feeling your skin. You haven't done anything to your skin. You're feeling the product. What so-called, and I'm doing air quotes here, moisturizers do is they don't moisturize. They soften the surface of the skin. That's why sometimes you'll hear people say, oh, I only use coconut oil, or I just use olive oil. I just use oil. Well, yeah, you can do that. You're not going to change anything in your skin, but you'll soften the stratum corneum. Now you say, oh, well, that's not a bad thing. I can soften my stratum corneum. Here's where it's a problem. See, while we think moisturization is important for the way our skin feels or looks, really moisturization, or more accurately, hydration, is important for chemistry. The enzymes and the biochemicals in the skin that are responsible for growing collagen and healing the skin and defending the skin and growing and maturing skin cells and strengthening the barrier, these all depend on an effective hydration water level of the tissue. So softening the skin, that's the booby prize. That's not the point. You want to hydrate the skin, and the only way to hydrate the skin. Well, before I tell you that, let me tell you something else about moisturizers. I said there's two things about moisturizers. First of all, they soften eyes. They don't do any moisturizing, but it's even worse than that. And I learned this at Blistex. In your skin, you have molecules that read the ambient humidity. They can actually sense the ambient humidity. So when you come from Hawaii to Colorado, where the ambient humidity drops, these molecules in the skin will read the drop in humidity, and they'll start cranking up what are called molecular sponges. They're called a natural moisturizing factor. And this natural moisturizing factor is an adaptive mechanism that's built into the skin in response to drops in humidity, drops in ambient humidity. But when you come to Colorado, if you're like most people, you come to Colorado from Hawaii, and your skin's really dry, what do? You put a moisturizer on your skin, which is really not a moisturizer, just wax and oil and some water and preservatives and whatever, silicone, a few other things. In cosmetic chemistry, we call this occlusion. You've heard that word, I'm sure. Occlusion. We occlude the skin. We cover the skin up. So now the skin can no longer read the ambient humidity. So it doesn't respond. So you come to Colorado from Hawaii and you say, oh, it's ambient humidity dry. My skin's a little dry now. I'm going to put some moisturizer on. Then the moisturizer wears off. Your moisture factors didn't respond, so now you don't have any moisture factors. Now you're really dry. So you say, oh, I'm going to get some more moisturizer. And you put more moisturizer on. And then the moisturizer wears off, and now you're really dry. And then you're like, I hate Colorado. I am so dry. I've never been this dry before. I can't wait to get out of here. I'm going to get that super heavy-duty moisturizer that nice lady at the department store told me about. Never have dry skin again. And this cycle continues. And this is why we sell $14 billion in moisturizing creams in this country, and everybody has dry skin. Your friends, I don't know, maybe not you, but your friends have, and my friends, moisturizers in their locker, in their purse, in their car, 2 in their medicine cabinet, 2 in their office, and 1 in their desk, and moisturizers everywhere. My girlfriend has, I don't even know, 12 different moisturizers, right? And so you would think with all these moisturizers we're all using and buying, nobody would ever have dry skin. But guess what, Mia? Guess what, Mia? Everybody has dry skin. We're addicted to our moisturizers. And I learned this at Blistex because the lips are like super skin. They're extreme skin. They're sticking out. So nature, or God, the divine force, has loaded the lips with natural moisture factor. The lips have the most natural moisture factor in the body, most of these molecules, because lips are sticking out. So they're more subject to the forces of convection and drying out than the skin is. So there's lots of natural moisture factor in the lips, but guess what we do when our lips are dry? We go get Blistex or chapstick or Carmex. And then what happens? Our natural moisture factor drops, our Carmex wears off, and now we're really dry. Dr. Jones became a bazillionaire because of this phenomena, and I have friends who can't go 15 minutes without putting their chapstick on. They freak out if they don't have their chapstick in their pocket or in their purse because they're suppressing their natural moisture factor. So on the one hand, moisturizers don't moisturize. They soften eyes. They don't change the hydration level of the skin. And on the other hand, they're worse than using nothing at all because they're suppressing your skin's natural moisture factor. So then the question is, what do I do for my dry skin? Right? Okay, so I can't use moisturizers are making it worse. What do I do? A couple things. First of all, the most important part of the moisture profile of the skin is the fats, the lipids. And these lipids are made by skin cells when the body is healthy. And when the body is healthy, by when the body is healthy, I mean when there's plenty of nutrients around and there's not a lot of anti-nutrients or inflammatory factors around, immune activating factors around. And so the fatty nutrients are incredibly important, especially 2, which are called essential, means you have to have it, fatty acids, EFAs. Now, these days, everybody has probably heard of omega-3 and omega-6. I don't want to bore anybody because probably most people know what those are. Omega-3 and omega-6 are the key to moisturizing your skin. Now, you'll notice that a lot of people in our culture, most people in our culture crave fatty foods. One of the reasons why we crave ice cream and potato chips and pizza and French fries and all the foods that we love tend to be fatty foods. Bacon. This thing about bacon just blows me away. There's very few foods on the planet that are worse for you than bacon. But everybody loves bacon because it's so fatty and salty. And so we crave these fatty foods largely because we're deficient in essential fatty acids and other fats. But essential fatty acids play a big role. And you can see this by supplementing with essential fatty acids. What you'll notice is, number one, you're not craving fatty foods as much. And it doesn't take very long for your cravings to start to go away. And you can actually experience this yourself if you take a bottle of essential fatty acid liquid and you drink half the bottle or some crazy amount. and then somebody puts French fries in front of you, you're not going to want those French fries. Even just thinking about French fries is going to make you want to throw up. Because once you've had enough fat, enough good fat, you're not going to want the lousy fat. So essential fatty acids are critically important. Also the fatty vitamins, particularly vitamin A. The fatty vitamins are DEAK, D-E-A-K. But particularly vitamin A is very important for fats, for fat absorption. And then if you have any digestive problems, fats are absorbed through the intestine and they require a healthy gallbladder and a healthy liver. So if you don't have a gallbladder, or you're not, your bile, your gallbladder aren't working right, or you have fatty liver disease, all of these can compromise fat absorption at the level of the intestine, and that can lead to dry skin. Or if you have Crohn's disease or celiac disease, or even just SIBO or dysbiosis, those can all compromise fat absorption and can lead to dry skin. And I would venture to say most people have some problem at that level. And that is also involved in skin dryness. And then there's another place where you can, that plays a role in skin hydration, and that's in the connective tissue. It turns out that water is trapped in the connective tissue, and this is how the skin stays hydrated. When the connective tissue deteriorates, our water starts to leak. And this is why, as we age, we blobify. I call it blobification. And you notice how if you see somebody who's in their 20s or 30s, they're kind of lean, they're straight, there's their angles. And then you look at grandma, not so much. She's rounder, blobbier. I call it blobification. And the reason we blobify is because we're not making as much connective tissue and the water's not being trapped. It's spreading out throughout our body. So building the connective tissue is also very important for hydration. And that's where vitamin C and retinol come in. And also where anti-moisturization comes in. What the heck is anti-moisturization? So we said moisturization is when you put something on the surface of your skin. Anti-moisturization is when you remove the surface of the skin. And exfoliation is anti-moisturization. Exfoliation with alpha hydroxy acids, or going to see an esthetician and doing skin peels, or retinol, which has some nice exfoliating properties, turns on the production of natural moisture factors, which are suppressed by moisturizers, turns on the production of connective tissue, whose content deteriorates as we get older. And on top of everything else, it builds a stronger barrier so that water doesn't it's harder for water to evaporate. It's harder for you to lose water through your skin. So exfoliation strategies, which I consider to be like exercise for the skin, in conjunction with all of the nutritional support that we talked about, essential fatty acids and the fatty vitamins, as well as digestive health strategies to make sure you're absorbing those vitamins, and then building the connective tissue. That's how you never have to use a moisturizer and you never have dry skin again, because guess what? Human skin should never be dry.
That's awesome. Thank you, Ben. I'm going to respect your time. I appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Thank you.
Your work as
I can't wait to see.
Yes.
Thanks for reaching out. I'm honored that you reached out. Thanks for using the truth. Thanks for loving the truth.
Yes,
Say a couple of things for your listeners. I have a YouTube channel called Skin Matters, where I talk all about the skin. I have a podcast for estheticians, which you listen to, called The Rogue Pharmacist. Anybody can listen to it. And if you really want to go take a little deeper dive into skincare and nutrition and health in general, listen to The Rogue Pharmacist. And then if you just Google Pharmacist Ben and anything, you'll get a million videos or interviews or blog posts or things that I've done over the last 20 years or so.
And that brings us to an end of another episode. I want to thank my guest, Ben Fuchs, for taking the time out of his busy schedule to chat with us about anti-aging, vitamin C, vitamin A. It was an amazing topic. And if you've enjoyed our conversation, please follow us on your favorite podcast platform. Give us a 5-star rating and leave us a positive review. Your support really helps us bring more fascinating content like this to you. So until the next time, guys, stay curious, stay healthy, and take care of your skin. Ahui ho kako. Bye.
You remind me of Friday fever when the sun went down. I could try to describe this feeling, but just come around. outside.